Hey everybody, it's Kevin here. This is my first vlog post, so I'm gonna try to sound coherent and and to make sense. And this is something that I've thought about doing for a while to kind of chronicle what my experience has been with my journey with diabetes as a patient and as a caregiver. I know that everybody's experience is a little bit different, and I've spent a lot of time kind of looking online and talking to other people about what their experiences have been or what they do, and trying to learn as much as I possibly can. And there's so much information out there, it's almost information overload. So sometimes I feel like just having a real experience or some real information can be helpful. So first, just a little information, a little background about me. Just turned 51 last Saturday, February 23rd. I'm officially in my 50s. I'm officially getting old. See my nice white beard here. And my journey with diabetes started when I was about 20 years old. So I was going to school up in Northern California. I wanted to be a fireman, and I was at Butte Community College. They had a fire science program up there, and this was in Oroville, California. And as I found out after that is that whenever you take a health class, regardless of where it is, they always talk about diabetes. So my experience was Chico. I was in Chico, and big party town, and I was your typical 19, 20 something year old kid away from home in that environment. And I did what everybody else did up there. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is there's really been no clear idea as to why I became a diabetic. I know people have said autoimmune, there's a lot of different things, but there was really one thing that happened for me that I can just kind of pinpoint, put my finger on. And it was, I was up there with a good friend of mine, and we were out drinking. They were pretty liberal with letting people into bars and not checking IDs. And we had a big night of drinking kamikazes. And I'd have to say that after that night, nothing was the same. And whether it was just fluke, or whether it was that particular thing, I do know that the doctors did say, hey, if you had let's say you had a bug that looked very much like the islet cells in your pancreas, your body in its infinite wisdom is going to try to protect you and kill all the baddies. And if your baddies look like those islet cells, then it's going to kill those as well. Could have been, that could be the case. And, I guess we'll never know. But it was after that night that, like I said, I didn't feel the same. I was thirsty all the time. I was going to the bathroom all the time. Couldn't think straight, couldn't think in class. And like I said, we were studying diabetes in health class. I'm like, holy shit, this is me. I had lost 10 pounds in a week. And so I went back home. I grew up in Redwood City, California. Went back home, went to my doctor at the time, and they did a test. And I'm like, oh yeah, you have diabetes, here's some pills. And that was it. And thankfully, I had a mother that said, well, why don't we look into something else? So we did end up finding an endocrinologist. I did end up in the hospital for a few days, and just to get my situation under control, get my blood sugar under control, and really to learn how to deal with diabetes and how to treat myself. And you're given this diagnosis, and as a kid who's never really had any problems, it was a lot. And and I wasn't a kid. I wasn't somebody that could rely on somebody else to take care of me. So I had to learn to do this myself. I started on the kind of the typical regimen of shots, and never liked needles as a kid. I still don't love it. I have to say, every time I have my blood drawn, I do look away, even though I've given myself God, it must be thousands of shots by now. Still not a huge fan. But I think, I was thinking about this morning. One of the nice things was they did not sugarcoat anything. They're not, they did not feel, I'm sure they had some compassion, some empathy, but, this was the way it was, and this is what you needed to do to take care of yourself, and you're just going to do it. And I remember giving myself, that first shot in my thigh, it wasn't as bad as I thought. And, giving myself the shots was not that bad. And it's never really been that bad. Yeah, every once in a while you hit a sore spot, a tender spot, but generally it's not that bad. And then, I learned about the things that you're supposed to do as a diabetic. Nutrition is a huge part of it. Exercise is a huge part of it. Excuse me. I did find a great endocrinologist back then. Not sure if he's still in practice. It was in Menlo Park or Palo Alto. It was Dr. Prendergast, and he was pretty progressive at the time. He did a lot of different testing, and I started off on a regimen of a long-lasting insulin with short-lasting insulin a couple times a day. Always kind of suffered with a pretty significant dawn phenomenon. So I'd have to say that my blood sugars were never great. And I did eventually switch over to, a more frequent shot regimen where I was mostly taking short-lasting insulin more frequently throughout the day and just using an NPH or Atlantis overnight, which was better. I was testing more often, correcting more often, and it did help. I still wasn't great. I was a kid, and I still was not doing everything that I should have done. Thankfully, the doctor got me started on a pump pretty early, so I started on one of the early Medtronic insulin pumps. Had this long needle. I swear the thing was felt like it was 2 inches long, probably 1.5 inches long, a bent needle, and would stick that thing in my fat and tape it down. And certainly it was a better way to keep my blood sugar under control, because one of the big things that we don't really think about is it's not necessarily how high your blood sugar is, it's whether you have any insulin in your body or not. And that's where some of the damage can come in. Certainly having a high blood sugar is not good, but not having any insulin in your system is a bad thing as well. We don't only need insulin to keep our blood sugar in check, but it's helpful for other processes as well. So at least with the pump, it was a way to make sure that I was getting insulin on a regular basis, hopefully minimizing some of the potential damage down the road. And it was helpful. But I still, I was a kid, and I was very strict for a period of time, and then I just went off and I was living my life. Now, the thing about diabetes that's different than most other diseases out there is that you do have complete control, which can be good and bad. Everything that you do on a day-to-day basis is going to affect your outcome down the road. And I have learned that. I'm much better now than I was back then. And, I do have some retinopathy. I do have some problems with my eyes. And, it's due to the fact that I wasn't great for a period of time. I didn't do the things that I should have done, early on. And, I've learned that, and I've done the best I can now. But, what I'd like to do is just kind of impart some of my information. I want to try to help people that have gone down this path. Try to offer a little bit of value for people so that they can, if they're struggling with some of the things that I have struggled with in the past or struggling with them now, feeling bad about some of the choices, some of the things that you do, that, you realize that, there's a lot of people out there that are like you, that are like me. And, and also for parents, one of the worst things a parent can experience is illness in a child. And, thank God I had some experience with diabetes, because when my daughter was diagnosed, it was tough. It was tough to deal with. And I felt so bad for the parents at Children's Hospital, in the endocrinology ward, who were learning for the first time that their kids had diabetes and they had no idea what it was. Thankfully I did have some experience. It certainly didn't make it any easier. In bringing up, in dealing with that, and bringing up a diabetic child is not easy. There's all, 6-year-old kids do not like shots. I was 20 and I didn't like it. So, kind of dealing with all of that, and then the transition from that, being the primary caregiver and doing everything for, a kid with diabetes, and transitioning that, kind of releasing that control over to, a young adult, and, and trusting in that, and making, and hoping they make the right decisions, trying to guide them. And it's not easy. And I'm not perfect, and she's not perfect, and none of us are perfect. But again, I think I have a unique perspective on diabetes, from my personal experience with it, and as a caregiver. And I hope that you guys can get some value out of the information that I'm going to be putting out here. I do have a YouTube channel. I have a website, mydiabetestruth. You should be able to search My Diabetes Truth. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And, please keep an eye out for future content. Certainly, you have any questions you'd like me to address, anything about diabetes, obviously, as a patient or as a caregiver, I'd certainly love to, to help you out and at least give you my experience. I'm a chiropractor. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not an endocrinologist. I'm not going to make medical recommendations for you. I will tell you what my experiences are, and and hopefully it will be helpful. Hope you guys do find this helpful, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.